The courtroom was already overflowing before the bailiff called for order. Wooden benches groaned under the weight of people pressed shoulder to shoulder. Jackets brushed, knees collided, perfumes and sweat mixed into a stale perfume that clung to the air. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, throwing a flat white glare that made no one look better than they were. A teenager in the back adjusted his phone, angling the camera low so it wouldn't be obvious. Everyone knew why they had come, to see sparks, to watch someone get burned. "All rise," the bailiff barked, and the gallery obeyed in a clumsy wave, shoes scuffing wood, bags sliding from laps, 100 breaths held at once. Every back straightened except one. A boy, maybe 17, maybe younger if you counted the acne still raw on his jaw, stayed seated. Thin, wiry, his body draped over the bench like he'd been born lounging. A baseball cap shaded his eyes, the brim was bent sharp, deliberately flat, the badge of someone who wanted the room to know he didn't care. His sneakers, white once, now scuffed gray at the toes, tapped against the floor in an uneven rhythm. One leg crossed over the other, his ankle bouncing. He didn't rise, not even an inch. The sound of the judge's chair creaking as she sat carried like thunder. Judge Judy settled her robe with the weight of someone who had done this more times than the boy had celebrated birthdays. She said nothing, just laid her palms flat on the desk. That stillness, that refusal to fill the silence, was louder than a gavel. The boy laughed. Loud, deliberate, sharp enough to echo off the walls. Heads snapped toward him, mouths half open in disbelief. Even the court reporter, fingers poised above her keys, hesitated for a beat too long before resuming her staccato rhythm. "Seriously," the boy said, his voice carrying over the benches. "This is court. You in a robe doesn't make it real." He turned his head toward the gallery, eyes glinting under the brim of his cap. "This is TV. A circus." A ripple spread through the room. A few nervous chuckles, quickly stifled. Someone whispered, "He has no idea what he's doing." Another man, arms folded across his chest, shook his head and muttered, "Kid's digging his own grave." The boy leaned back deeper, his smirk spreading. "I don't even need a lawyer to win this. Against you? Please. I've already won." The plaintiff, a man in his 30s with rough hands and a worn jacket, stared at the floor, jaw tightening. He didn't move, but the vein along his temple stood out. His silence said more than any outburst could have. Judge Judy didn't blink. She let the boy's words hang in the air, left them to rot under the fluorescent glare. Then, finally, her voice came, cold, level, stripped of everything but fact. "Young man," she said, "this is not a circus." She paused, just long enough for the gallery to lean forward, for the boy to mistake it as hesitation. "This is your catastrophe." Another beat, sharp, final. "But go on. Show us your act." The silence that followed was thick, almost physical. The boy tried to laugh again, but the sound came out thinner, more forced. He shifted in his seat, adjusting his cap like it could hide the crack in his confidence. The gallery breathed as one. Someone's phone buzzed, quickly silenced. A woman pressed her hand to her mouth to keep from speaking. The boy's arrogance had turned the room against him before the first piece of evidence had even been opened. Judy's eyes didn't move from his. Not once. The bailiff adjusted his stance, ready, but Judy gave no signal. She didn't need to. Control was already hers. The boy crossed his arms, sneering, though his heel betrayed him by tapping against the floor too fast. He tried again, louder this time, to reclaim the stage. "I'm not scared. This is all for show. You can't touch me." Judge Judy leaned forward just slightly, the robe making a sound like distant thunder. Her gaze was sharp enough to slice through the brim of his cap. She didn't argue. She didn't rise to his bait. Instead, she lifted the first folder of documents from her desk and let it land with a dull thud that carried across the wood. The boy flinched, so small, most missed it. Judy didn't. Her hand rested on the cover, not opening it yet. The silence stretched. The boy looked around, searching for support from the audience, but found only eyes waiting for his next mistake. You said you don't need counsel, Judy said finally. You also said you don't need a courtroom. Fascinating. You walk into both and mock them, as if your own words won't betray you. The boy smirked again, but now it looked brittle, thinner at the edges. I don't plan to stay long. This is nothing. Couple grand, some electronics, jealous people trying to drag me down. He glanced at the gallery again, desperate for someone to nod along. No one did. Judy let his words sink into the air. Then she touched the corner of the first page and turned it over with deliberate care. The rustle of paper filled the room. Phones tilted higher. The boy's foot stilled for the first time. The moment was no longer his. And as Judy began to read, the room braced itself. Everyone could feel it, the show he wanted had already begun, but not in the way he had imagined. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. The boy leaned back, folding his arms like he'd already won. The smirk was painted on, too deliberate, but his eyes darted to the phones in the gallery, making sure they were catching everything. This whole thing is pointless, he began, louder than necessary, voice cracking just slightly at the edges. They're suing me for a couple thousand over some electronics. I resold, made more than they thought I should, and now they're jealous. That's all this is, grown men mad that a teenager outsmarted them. He dug into his backpack, yanked out a folder swollen with papers, and slammed it onto the table with exaggerated force. The slap echoed. Receipts, invoices, photocopies spilled forward in uneven stacks, neon sticky tabs waving like flags in battle. He shoved them toward the bench, chin tilted high. There. Proof. Everything you need. Case closed. Gasps scattered through the room. Some leaned forward, curious, others sank back, waiting. The plaintiff's jaw clenched, lips pressed thin. Judge Judy's hand stayed still for a moment longer than expected, as though she were measuring the boy's confidence by weight. Finally, she reached. Her fingers curled around the folder slowly, no rush, like someone pulling the pin on a grenade only when ready. The gallery fell quiet. The fluorescent hum filled the space, loud as static. The stenographer's keys ticked, tap, pause, tap, steady as a heartbeat. Judy opened the folder. Pages rasped as she turned them one by one. Her face revealed nothing. No frown, no sigh, no shake of the head. The boy's sneaker began to bounce, heel thumping against the floor in a rhythm he didn't seem aware of. He glanced at the audience again, lips twitching into a grin that faltered when no one smiled back. At last, Judy stopped. She pressed a single page flat with her finger, then spoke without looking up. These documents, she said, her tone calm, clipped, were printed last week. The gallery reacted instantly. A low murmur rippled, a hissed whistle from somewhere in the back. A woman covered her mouth, whispering, "Oh no." Phones angled closer to the judge's desk. The boy laughed, quick and brittle. So what? They're copies. I made them neat for you. What, you'd rather I drag in crumpled receipts? I'm helping. Judy turned another page, reading silently, then raised her eyes. They were flat, cold, and they pinned him like an insect. The transactions you're being sued for occurred 6 months ago. And yet your copies carry a print date from 7 days ago. She let the words hang. That is not organization. That is invention. The boy waved a hand, brushing it off. It doesn't matter. The numbers are the same. You're nitpicking. Judy didn't flinch. She slid one sheet aside, aligning it with the next. You signed this page. Yeah, he said quickly. That's mine. The total listed here, Judy continued, tapping the figure, is 2,000 more than the original invoice. He blinked. Just once, but it was enough. Maybe I updated it, he said, tone louder, sharper. So what? It's still the truth. The plaintiff just wants attention. Whispers surged through the benches. Someone muttered, "He's cooked." A teenager snickered into her phone mic, "This is going downhill." Judy raised one palm and the noise died instantly. Her eyes narrowed, but her voice softened, almost gentle. "You call these copies. Yet the amounts are different. The signatures do not match. And the ink is too fresh." The boy's smirk returned, but the muscles in his neck betrayed him, tightening as he forced it. "It's details. Who cares? The truth is on my side." "The truth," Judy replied, "is not afraid of details." The gallery leaned in. The plaintiff finally looked up from the table, eyes sharp, a glimmer of vindication in them. Phones caught the shift in the boy's body, shoulders stiffening, foot stilling. His arrogance wasn't gone, but it was cracked. Judy closed the folder softly, not slamming, just a firm finality. "These papers raise more questions than they answer." Her gaze didn't leave his. "And I intend to ask them." The boy leaned forward, voice rising, words tumbling too fast. "You're making a big deal over nothing. I've got plenty more proof. I don't need anyone's help to beat this. I'll." The door at the back opened with a low groan. Every head turned. A figure stepped inside, young, maybe his age, maybe a little older, hoodie zipped halfway, phone clutched tight in his hand. The bailiff's eyes narrowed, but Judy didn't move. She waited until the hush returned, then looked at the newcomer. The boy saw him too. For the first time, his grin faltered completely. The gallery felt the shift. The tension thickened, buzzing like a wire about to snap. Judy rested her hand back on the folder. "We'll see if your truth survives what comes next," she said quietly. The boy's jaw tightened. His foot stopped bouncing. The phones rose higher, waiting. And the newcomer raised his phone, screen glowing in the dim. The door clicked shut behind the newcomer, and the faint echo pressed into the silence like a nail into wood. He wasn't dressed for a courtroom, hoodie zipped halfway, jeans frayed at the cuff, sneakers still dusted from the street. His hand clutched a phone, knuckles pale. He looked less like a witness and more like someone dragged here by conscience. Judy didn't glance at the gallery. She studied the boy instead, watched the smirk freeze mid-curve. "Step forward," she said. The bailiff moved to guide the newcomer, his presence part shield, part warning. The young man walked slowly down the aisle, shoulders tense, eyes set on the judge. Strangers followed him with their stares the way people watch a storm cloud slide over a town. At the stand, he gave his name, Eli, and swore the oath with a hand that trembled once before going still. Up close, the scar across his wrist showed faint and white, an old injury that didn't matter here but gave him weight. He didn't look at the boy. The boy broke first. "Never seen him in my life," he said too quickly. His laugh tried to rise, thin and sharp, but it cut itself short when no one joined in. Judy's tone was neutral, clipped. "What is in your hand, Mr. Eli?" "A phone," he said. He swallowed. "And messages." The gallery inhaled together, 100 ribs moving as one. Phones tilted higher, eager to capture. The plaintiff's head lifted just slightly, as though gravity had eased. "From whom?" Judy asked. Eli pointed once, brief. "From him. We used to sell together. He texted me after the deal went bad." The boy slapped a hand on the table. "Lies. Anyone can fake texts." His voice strained, a pitch too high. Judy raised her palm, and the silence fell with mechanical obedience. "Continue, Mr. Eli." Eli spoke steadier now. "He said he'd fix the numbers before court. Said he'd print fresh copies and laugh if anyone questioned it." His jaw tightened. "He told me not to be dumb enough to keep the originals." The word laugh landed hard, rippling down the benches. A woman whispered, "Unbelievable," and caught herself too late. The bailiff took the phone, carried it to the clerk. The screen's glow spilled across the monitor. A thread of blue and gray bubbles bloomed, ugly in their plain font. Dates ran 6 months back. A photo thumbnail appeared, an old receipt, totals mismatched with the copies Judy had just examined. Judy didn't smile. "We'll read these aloud," she said. Her gaze slid to the boy. "That way, no one can deny what was written." The boy leaned forward, voice brittle. "Anyone can paste numbers onto a chat. It's fake." "Fake," Judy repeated, soft as chalk on stone. "Let's see." The clerk magnified a timestamp. Clear, bold, impossible to edit without leaving scars. The stenographer's machine hammered steadily, preserving each word. In the gallery, a man leaned so far over the rail his sleeve left dust streaks. Eli cleared his throat. He wrote, "Redo it with cleaner lines. No one looks that close. Then, pad the total. I'll cover hassle." His eyes stayed on the judge, not the boy. The boy scoffed, but his grin twitched like bad neon. Jokes. Trash talk. Everyone talks big in texts. Judy turned a page of the folder still open before her. Jokes rarely arrive with correct account numbers attached. The gallery stirred, laughter mixing with disbelief. Phones hovered like torches. The plaintiff's lips pressed together, holding back the urge to speak. "Another message," Eli continued. "Court is TV. I'll print fresh, make it pretty. You think she'll check fonts?" Gasps. Someone muttered, "He actually wrote that." A cough tried to cover a laugh. Judy's voice didn't rise. "That was at 11:42 p.m., the night after you promised a refund." She tilted her head. "Is that your number?" The boy hesitated. A single beat of silence stretched longer than any word he could muster. Finally, "People spoof numbers. Happens all the time." Judy's stare cut through him. "Phones remember the truth longer than memory does." The clerk tapped the screen. A small waveform appeared, a gray triangle waiting. The gallery held its breath, some already filming. The boy pressed his cap flat against his head, hands tight, eyes darting. His confidence had fractured. The swagger was gone, replaced by a hunted edge. Judy nodded once. "Words first. Then we'll hear the sound of them." The screen froze on the damning sentence, "Fabricated numbers." The blue bubble blinked like a wound that refused to close. The gallery leaned in, silent, rapt. And Judy, her voice quiet but sharp, said, "We begin here." Judy balanced the phone on her fingertips as if it were a scale. Not dramatic, precise. The glow of the screen bleached her knuckles and threw a thin rectangle of light across the bench. Around her, the room held itself very still. You could hear the ventilation thread through the vents, a shoe decide not to move. The boy stared at the device like a person staring at a closed door and insisting there's nothing behind it. "We proceed line by line," she said. The stenographer's keys answered with a tight rhythm. Judy angled the screen so the timestamp faced the room and read, flat and clear. Quote, "I'll make a fake contract, that old lady won't get it." End quote. It hit like a dropped tray. Laughter cracked, first in the back, then mid-rows. Gasps tangled with a thin whistle before dying under the bailiff's raised palm. Phones lifted, hungry eyes behind them. A woman in scrubs whispered, "He wrote that?" And looked ashamed of the relief in her voice. It was a joke, the boy said fast, already halfway to standing though no one had asked him to. "Just messing with friends." Sarcasm. "It's nothing." Jokes usually dodge specifics, Judy replied without looking up. "You did not dodge. You sent numbers and a plan." He tried to laugh. "It snagged. You ever been 17? People talk big." "More than once," she said, almost kind. She set the phone near a new set of papers the clerk slid across. Heavy stock, embossed seal, a faint chemical bite. Wire confirmation, she said. Plaintiff's funds arrive 10:03 a.m. She turned the sheet. Internal transfer 10:27 a.m. Disbursements begin 11:02 a.m. Another page. ATM at 11:31 a.m. and a debit-coded electronics, private sale. The gallery's reaction was low and certain, like surf on a stone beach. A man muttered, "Same day," like an accusation. The plaintiff's hands went flat on his knees. The boy's heel started tapping, a small code he couldn't help, until he noticed and pinned it still. "You moved his money the way people move money they own," Judy said. "You did not own it." "That's context," the boy blurted. "Costs. I intended to refund." "This is business, not," he swallowed. "Not crime." "It's promise," Judy said. "Contracts are promises that learn to read." She slid the bank pages an inch, letting the light catch the seal. "You told your friend you'd fabricate a contract and pad totals. You told the plaintiff you'd refund." Only one of those statements became real. A ripple moved across the benches, breath, the wooden hush of bodies leaning in. On the monitor, the message thread sat with its neutral font, a gray-blue ledger of arrogance. "Anchor point," Judy said, tapping the timestamp. "The boast about a fake contract arrives the night after the unit fails. The next morning, the money goes on a tour." She glanced up. Coincidence doesn't hold up well under time. The boy grabbed at light. "The account isn't just mine," he said too quickly. "My mom helps with bills. You can't put the transfer on me." "We could request device IDs and IP logs," Judy answered. "Or ask whether your mother writes electronics, private sale, when she buys bread." Her face didn't change. "Would you like me to call her?" He flinched and the gallery felt it like a draft. "No," he said, then softer, "that's not necessary." "Agreed," Judy said. "We have enough." She turned another sheet. "You promised a refund." Her eyes scanned, then stopped. "It isn't here." A hiss, a strangled laugh, a chorus of almost words. The bailiff's stance kept them down. The boy's mouth opened and closed around a defense that arrived without bones. "You told me," Judy said quietly, "this was jealousy in a complaint form. You told me you didn't need counsel or a courtroom." She paused. "So far the only person convinced is the one who gave that speech." He tried for swagger, but the flat cap brim now cast a childish line across his face. "You don't get it," he said. "Online it's performative. We talk like that. It's culture. Performance ends at the teller window," Judy said. "Ledgers don't applaud." She tapped the 10:27 a.m. line, then the bubble that read fabricated numbers. "Dates are the one thing you can't talk over." Wind worried the windows. Dust drifted. The stenographer changed paper and kept writing. The plaintiff exhaled, one long breath, the sound burdens make when they see the door. "This is TV," the boy said, voice a notch too loud. "Nobody cares about fonts and timestamps. They want drama." "Fine," Judy said, almost smiling. "We'll give them the one drama that lasts, consequence." She squared the bank pages and set the phone on top as if closing a lid. Then to the clerk, "Mark exhibits. Prepare the next disclosure." Neon flags winked as they landed. The boy's eyes went to the exit, to the cameras, back to the stack he could no longer dominate. For the first time, he looked appropriately young. Judy let the quiet mature. "We're not finished," she said. "You told a friend and bold lady wouldn't understand. We'll test that claim with people who heard you say it again." The gallery stilled. "Bailiff," Judy said, eyes still on the boy, "bring in the next witness." The hinges sang a thin metallic note. The door at the rear moved. The crowd leaned in because they couldn't help themselves, because this is how stories arc when truth takes the pen. The boy didn't look back. He stared at the stack, phone on paper, words on numbers, and understood, maybe for the first time, that some stages do not love their actors. The back door opened again, and this time the sound of hinges carried weight. A man walked in, not flashy, not intimidating, but with the quiet gravity of someone used to being listened to. Mid-40s, corduroy jacket with elbow patches, a messenger bag worn soft from years. His beard was neat, his step deliberate. A teacher. The bailiff met him halfway, then guided him to the stand. He swore in with a calm voice, Daniel Reeve, adjunct instructor at the local college. Business courses. Digital payments. The boy tried to laugh, a brittle sound. Never seen him in my life. But no one joined him. Reeve opened a notebook, worn, flagged with neon slips, scribbled with pencil. I keep records of class discussions, he explained. In November, we studied fraud risks in peer-to-peer systems. The defendant raised his hand. He said, Reeve checked his notes, then read, voice steady, judges won't get crypto. They're too old. You can flip, refund through wallets, they can't trace it. Even if it goes to court, I'll just print fresh papers. TV judges want drama, not details. The words hit like a thrown stone. The gallery reacted instantly, gasps, sharp laughter, a muttered, unbelievable. The bailiff's raised hand pressed the room back into silence. The boy slammed a palm on the table. That's a lie. It was a joke, a riff in class. You can't turn sarcasm into evidence. Reeve didn't flinch. I remember because I asked him, what about fiat records if a refund was owed? And he said, quote, by the time anyone asks, I'll have cleaned the chain. She won't know the difference. End quote. He closed the notebook softly. The class laughed. I wrote it down because I didn't. That last sentence pierced. A nurse in the gallery whispered, wow, before catching herself. The plaintiff bowed his head, a small, exhausted release. The boy's voice climbed into panic. It's a setup. You're all jealous. Teachers never liked me. Now you're teaming up with them. You hate that I'm younger and smarter. Judy didn't blink. No one here hates you. They simply read you, like a comic book. Bold colors. Simple captions. Predictable ending. The room erupted again, half laughs, sharp breaths, the kind of reaction that isn't cruel so much as inevitable. The boy blinked at the gallery, searching for someone, anyone, who still believed him. No one moved. Reeve added quietly, I told my students, ink has a history. So does a file. You can always see when something new pretends to be old. He laughed at that, too. Judy inclined her head slightly. Thank you, Mr. Reeve. She didn't dismiss him yet, letting his presence hang in the room like chalk lines on a board. The boy leaned over the table, fingers spread, knuckles white. His words broke apart as they left him. You just want a headline. A viral clip. To humiliate me. His chest rose and fell too fast. No, Judy said, almost gentle. We want the truth. You brought the rest. Her hand rested on the bank papers, the phone, the teacher's notebook, 3 exhibits stacked like layers of his own arrogance. The gallery was utterly still. You could hear the tick of the clock on the wall, the rustle of someone shifting in a too small seat. The boy sat back, mouth working but empty. Judy gave him one last chance. Do you have anything else, anything, that helps you? Silence. His throat moved. No words came. Judy's palm flattened the stack, sealing it. Then the record is nearly complete. The gallery breathed out as one, long, heavy, certain. The boy slumped, the brim of his cap shading eyes that no longer dared to meet the room. The clerk's hands moved quickly, tagging the last pages, sliding them into order. The room was taut as wire, every eye fixed on the bench. Judge Judy lifted the stack of papers, bank records, flagged statements, messages, testimony, and arranged them into a single folder. She did it slowly, deliberately, each corner aligned, each sheet smoothed. The act wasn't clerical. It was ceremonial, like folding a flag over a closed casket. The boy sat slumped now, the brim of his cap tilted too low, shoulders hunched as though the wood of the table might shield him. His hands were pale at the knuckles, gripping the edge as if letting go would send him sliding into a hole he couldn't climb out of. His breathing was shallow, audible to those closest, a sound like air moving through broken glass. Judy placed the folder flat before her. Her hands rested on it, calm, steady. When she spoke, her voice was not raised, but it carried farther than shouting. I have considered the evidence. I have listened to the witnesses. I have read your words, written in ink and glowing on a screen. She let her gaze fix him until he raised his eyes despite himself. The result is unavoidable. The gallery braced. Some sat forward, others crossed their arms, but all of them leaned into the weight of her tone. Phones hovered, lenses catching every fraction of her face. You are guilty of fraud, Judy said. Each word sharp, final. You will repay the plaintiff in full, every dollar. You will pay interest. You will cover his costs. The total is $20,000. The number landed like stone into still water. The gallery gasped, a few clapped before catching themselves. Someone whistled low, a sharp note cut short by the bailiff's glance. Murmurs swelled, an undertone of approval and disbelief. A man in a work jacket muttered, "Teach him," under his breath, not unkindly, but with the weight of a verdict shared by all. The boy's lips parted. For a moment, he looked like he might try to laugh again, the defense that had carried him this far. But the sound never came. His mouth closed, opened again. Words jammed in his throat, stranded there. His eyes darted, wild, like a trapped animal searching for an exit in a cage made of stairs. The plaintiff stared at him, not with gloating, but with the exhausted relief of a man finally heard. His hands pressed together, knuckles trembling. He whispered something only he could hear, maybe a thank you, maybe a prayer. The gallery was alive now, a chorus of strangers reacting as one. Some shook their heads, others smiled grimly. One woman whispered to her neighbor, she cut him down to size. Another muttered, about time. The noise rose, but Judy's lifted palm sliced it in half. Silence returned as if trained. She leaned forward, elbows resting on the bench, eyes locking on the boy until nothing else existed for him. The cameras might as well have gone dark, the phones might as well have turned to stone. Only her voice remained. You wanted a show, she said. Each word deliberate. You mocked this courtroom, the law, and the people who trusted you. But the only performance we saw was your arrogance unraveling. Her tone hardened, steel wrapped in calm. And the only star in this story is your foolishness. The gallery reacted with a low hiss, then laughter that bubbled up, half nervous, half exhilarated. The boy's face drained pale. For the first time that morning, he didn't look defiant. He looked young, 17, fragile, exposed. His cap slid forward, almost covering his eyes, but he didn't fix it. His fingers trembled, releasing the table edge as though strength had fled his grip. The swagger, the grin, the cocky tilt of his chin, all gone. In their place was silence. Judy's hand reached for the gavel. She held it just long enough for the room to feel the moment, to sense the edge of an ending. The gallery leaned in, breath held. The plaintiff stared, unmoving, eyes wet. The boy looked up once more, lips pressed tight, expression cracked open by fear. And then the gavel came down. The crack echoed like a rifle shot, reverberating off the wood and walls, filling every corner. Applause broke, gasps, whispers. The bailiff lifted a hand, and again the noise snapped into silence. But the silence felt different now, heavy, absolute, final. The boy sat frozen. His eyes darted, looking for somewhere to land, on Judy, on the gallery, on the exit, but found nothing. The cameras caught every angle of his collapse, and for once he didn't play to them. His face was not a mask anymore. It was bare. Judy leaned closer, her voice low, steady, a blade slipped between armor and bone. Think carefully next time you laugh at a court. Laughter cost you $20,000 today. The words sliced through the last defenses he had. His lips trembled, but he said nothing. The gallery sat stunned, the moment pinning them like nails. The plaintiff shut his eyes, a tear escaping despite his attempt to hold it back. The final sound was the gavel again, one more strike, deep and resonant. It silenced everything. The lights hummed. The dust in the air froze. The camera frame caught the boy's face one last time, pale, cracked, a mask finally shattered. The brim of his cap no longer looked like defiance, it looked like cover he couldn't crawl under. His youth was written across him now, undeniable, and the weight of consequence pressed down on his shoulders. And then the scene seemed to freeze, a cliffhanger in stillness, leaving the room balanced on the edge of silence.